Howdy, everyone. This is Norman McFadden. I'm the author of Legends of Leaper Hollow 1 and 2. And then I moved up here in Lincoln County, Troy, Missouri, and I wrote for the paper for 4 years. Got 2 books called Urban Legends of Lincoln County, Missouri, 1 and 2. And they're all good books. Legends of Leaper Hollow is kind of like a Tom Sawyer book because I loved Mark Twain when I growed up. I read his books, I loved his stories. So I kind of copied my writing style after him a little bit. So if you like Tom Sawyer, you'd like this. Now the Urban Legends of Lincoln County is totally different. People called in legends like Satan Tunnel, where people both got killed, and I went out there to stay the night. Then I wrote stories about staying the night there. So today, our story is coming out of Legends of Leaper Hollow, and we're going to get to the story. It's called Legend of Grandpa's Headless Man. It's a hot August day in 1961. I was 8 years old, and I was so hot that day. It was so doggone hot. You probably could break an egg and fry it on a rock. It was that hot. And our house, oh man, there was no air conditioning in our house. We had a tin roof with no insulation. We had a slab lumber on the sides of it. We had one fan. And when it was 100 degrees outside, it was 120 inside. It was not a good place to stay. But I was so hot and bored, I went in the kitchen. I told Mom, I said, Mom, I'm hot, I'm bored. And Mom said, Little Mac, get out under my feet. I am sweaty and hot too. I'd seen Grandpa sitting down under the shade tree down at his house. To go on down there and talk to him. She didn't have to say that twice because it was hot in that house. I wanted to get the heck out of there. So I ran out of that screen door as fast as I could go. Now, Grandpa just lived right down the road. You could throw a rock from our front porch and hit his roof. Matter of fact, I tried it once. I threw a rock, and it went up and went through his window. Grandma was not happy. But Grandpa said, shut up, old lady. Boys will be boys. And that was the end of it. They took care of it. They put the window in and never did say another word. But I went on down there, and Grandpa was sitting under the tree tree, just like Mama said. So I went up to him. I said, Grandpa, how's it going? He said, oh, I'm sitting there under the shade tree drinking me some red root tea. Red root tea. The best thing about red root tea is free. You go out in the woods along the creek bank, and you just cut you some red roots out under the creek bank there, and take it home, heat it up, put some sugar in it. Grandpa swore by it. He said it's the best thing in the world for you. Kept you healthy. So he said, go in the house, get your tea from Grandma, and come back out here and sit under the shade with me. We'll drink tea and I'll tell you a story. Oh, I love Grandpa's stories too. When Grandpa told me stories, I loved them. There's a lot of his stories in this book. So I went in the house and I told Grandma, I said, can you give me some tea? She went in the ice box, got the tea out, poured it in a cup, handed it to me, looked at me with love in her eyes. She said, how's it going, little Mac? And I shook my head like, yeah, it's going okay, Grandma. And I walked back on out to Grandpa. And when I got out there, I heard him holler really loud. He hollered loud. He said, Ray, old lady, be sure you get supper on the stove. They hollered all the time. Grandma and Grandpa hollered all the time. I guess after 40 years of marriage and 15 kids, they got used to it. But Grandpa told me to come over and sit down by him. I went over and sat down by him. He threw his arm around me. When he put his arm around my neck, he coughed a couple of times. And he said, you know, little Mac, you know, I started smoking when I was 10-year old. He says, one habit I can't kick. He said, I tried. He said, one of these days, I guess it'll kill me. But he said, let me tell you a story now. He said, so he started this story. He said it was 1925. And he said a man that lived here in Leeper with his family, and his name was Billy D. He lived here in Leeper, but he worked in Mill Springs. He said you could take the highway. If you had a car, you could be there in a few minutes, but if you walked the highway for 2 miles, and it'd take you a while. And he said nobody in Leeper hardly had a car in them days because it was all too poor. So Billy would walk the railroad track, which was only about a mile, to get to the mill, sawmill where he worked. But he said Billy had a little drinking problem. He said every night when he got off work, he'd go to the local bar there in Mill Springs and drink at Field. And he said this day, it was really hot outside. Billy went in there and he drank just a little too much alcohol with the heat. He came walking out of the bar door, and he slipped and he fell. Got up again. The lady on the bar ran out and she said, Billy, why don't you get one of these guys here that got a car drive you home? No, Billy said. He said, I'm going to walk. He said, oh, my little lady don't like it when I drink. If I walk, it'll give me time to sober up. So he disappeared in the darkness going towards the railroad tracks. He got up the railroad track to where straightaway was. He got middle of the straightaway and he said, you know, I can see a train from either direction here. He said, I'm just going to lay down and rest for a while. So he put his feet against one side of the track and his head against the other side of the track and used the track as a pillow. But the moment his head hit that track, he fell asleep. He did not even hear that train coming. And he said his wife got worried because Billy didn't come home. So she went out and got some of the town people, and they went out down the track because they knew he walked the track. And they said it wasn't but about 15 minutes they found his head. It was just cut off like you took a knife and just whacked his head off. Train just did a nice easy cut. Then they walked about 100 feet down the track. There was his body where his train dragged him. He said, you know, a lot of people here in Leeper are scared of that stretch of track. Around 7 o'clock, nobody walks that track. Because they said Billy D points that track. You know, little Mac, I don't think I'd be scared of ghosts. He said, I don't believe it's this stuff. He said, I was down at Farmer Brown's helping him put corn in his field, planting his corn. And he said it was getting late, and we ran out of corn seed. And Farmer Brown started complaining. He said, look, it's going to rain, and if it rains, I can't get the other 2 fields planted because I ain't got the corn. I need about 100 pounds of corn from the feed store in Leeper. And he said, my doggone truck ain't running, so I can't drive up here and get it. Grandpa said, just calm down, Farmer Brown, calm down. He said, I got time. He said, I'll go up to the feed store. I'll grab the seed and I'll pack it back down here to you and you can plant it. Farmer Brown looked at Grandpa. He said, Charlie, you are a big man. But he said, that's a long way to pack 100 pounds of seed. He said, don't worry about it, don't worry about it. I'll put 50 pounds on one shoulder, 50 pounds on it. He said, don't worry about it, I'll go get it. So Grandpa said, got to the feed store and he told him that he needed 100 pounds of corn seed in 50-pound bags. So that'd be 2 bags. So they got it for him. He said, charge it to Farmer Brown. He threw one on one shoulder, got one on the other shoulder. He said it was about 6:45. He started down the track. And he said time he got to that straightaway, it was about 7 o'clock. He said, like I told you, little Mac, I don't believe in ghosts. But he said, all of a sudden, I looked down that track towards Milk Springs, and he said, here come Billy D. Billy D's ghost was walking up the tracks with his head in his hand. He said, I thought in my head, what can I do here? He said, so I just put the seeds down, bagged the feed down, and stacked them on top of each other, and I sit down on them. I looked at Grandpa and said, you didn't run? He said, nah, little Mac, I didn't run. He said, I sat there on the seat until Billy walked by me. And he walked by me, I said, hello, how you doing, Billy? He said, I look like the rain's moving in, Bill. He said, to my surprise, he turned around with that head in his hand, and his mouth started moving, and it says, I ain't got time to talk. I gotta get home. My little lady be worried. She don't like it when I drink. I gotta get home. And with that, he just turned around and started walking back up track towards Leaper. I said, what'd you do, Grandpa? He said, I didn't do nothing. He said, I got up, threw the seeds back on my shoulder, headed down to Farmer Brown, and we got them 100 pounds of seed in the field before it rained. He said, first time and last time I seen the ghost. You know, that was the last story my grandpa ever told me. Because he lost his 3-year battle with lung cancer. He died 3 years later in 1964. My grandpa went from 6'3", 225 pounds, down to 125 pounds before he died. Them cigarettes deprived me of the time that I could have spent with my grandpa, listening to his story and just having my grandpa's company. But like Grandpa says, he says, my fault, I smoked. Well, that's all tonight, folks. Be sure to go and type my name in to Google, Norman McFadden, the author, and buy some of these books. They're really good. And I'm not saying because I wrote them. They are good. I've had a lot of, I think they got a 5-star review. So, love y'all. God bless you. See you next time.